What do you think the largest expense is going to be for someone in retirement? Is it A, taxes, or B, medical expenses?
I could name a third.
What is a third, curiously?
I am going to name that because living expenses. And what I mean is like housing and that kind of thing. That is a hidden one. And actually, again, we have the advantage of research is people think, well, I'll just retire in place. The trouble is that gets really expensive. You need a new roof and all the taxes going up and all that. So to me, the two big expenses are medical and housing, which surprise people. They think Medicaid's going to take care of it, and no, Medicaid's not going to take care of your housing.
Welcome to Redefine Retirement with Ryan Wheless, powered by Allied Wealth. This podcast explores how to live a limitless life of abundance in retirement with clarity, purpose, and confidence. Welcome to another episode of Redefine Retirement with Ryan Wheless. I've got Steve Parrish on today. Steve's a leading voice in retirement planning and wealth management. As an attorney, a tax attorney that is, a certified financial planner with over 4 decades of experience, Steve holds the CFP, RICP, and CLU credentials. All right, here's what's cool though. He actually works for the American College teaching and designing the retirement income RICP designation that advisors across the country use. He's a frequent contributor to Forbes magazine and an expert on income tax strategies, estate planning, and how to invest your money in a way to provide a guaranteed income for life during your golden years. Welcome to the show, Steve. Steve, I want to jump in here, bud, and go. I noticed looking over your bio that you've been in this industry for over 30 years. That's and I'm not trying to date you or call you old or anything like that, bud. But what I'm curious about is this: in the last 30 years, how and what changes have occurred in retirement and retirement planning?
Yeah, and it's actually been a lot more than 30 years. So I've gotten to see a lot of changes. And of course, we have technology and demographics and everything. But the fact is that I think the big thing that's really changed a lot is that people used to see themselves as having a hard stop retirement and the pension would kick in. So at the end of the day, it was the retirement event. And nowadays, the biggest change is, we're all sitting on a pot of money, or we hopefully are sitting on a pot of money that might be a 401k or an IRA or whatever. You got to figure out what to do with that. And then Social Security, it's not just something you elect when you retire. You don't have a pension. So we've moved into a thing where we have both the event of retiring and then also the actual journey. In other words, that's the part where you figure out, who am I going to be? Who am I going to be with? Where am I going to live? All those kind of issues. That's a big change from the old day of getting the gold watch and basically heading to the rocking chair until you died.
I like that because, we at Allied Wealth, we specialize in solving the retirement equation. All right. But the reality is we can't help you solve your retirement equation until we can help you visualize where you are, how you're spending your time, where you live and what you're doing, right? And so that's an important fact. And it's interesting because I have a lot of advisors and industry folks come on the podcast, and the good ones, the people that are fiduciary advisors and doing the right things by their clients, they never ever lead with the dollars and cents. It's always the emotional side of retirement. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, really, the dollars and cents are the last part because they're not the goal. They are the way to achieve the goal. So what you first do is you kind of look and say, when do I really want to stop doing what I'm going to do? And then what's that next phase going to be? Because let's put it this way. So I'm on Social Security, I'm on Medicare, but doggone it, I'm not retired. I have a career. So you really have to ask yourself, how are you defining retirement and what's that really mean to you? Then you have to marshal together all the things you have. This is when we start thinking a little bit about the money and saying, well, what kind of tools do I have and how do those match up with what my goals are? I mean, if I'm going to just basically sit around and maybe, do some volunteer work and that, maybe you don't need as much. If you want to do all those things that you didn't get to do before and go see the grandkids and take them to Disney or on the European tour, it'll take more. So that's when you start looking at the money. And then the part of the money is really taking that big pot of money that so many of us have with a 401k or something like that and saying that's a rough proxy for the income I'm going to have. Will that be enough? And that's where you start really getting into the brass tacks.
That's interesting. So when it comes to, solving the retirement equation, basically what we have to help someone do is how to figure out the next 30, 40 years ahead in life without the paycheck they left behind at work. All right. So with someone who's got a 401k, Steve, what are some good ideas that someone to take their 401k and convert it to, something that replaces their paycheck? Because ultimately they have to use that pot of money to finance their ideal lifestyle in their golden years. No one wants to take a step back. We all want to live the same lifestyle or even a better lifestyle in retirement. So what are some ideas you have for people to help them maximize that money and live the best life they possibly can with the resources they had to work with in their golden years?
And we have to work with where you are. And when I say you, I mean everybody's different. I have associates who really like chasing the market and being into that. I have other people who say, no, I want to go see the kids. I want to go golf and all that. So you first have to figure out what your own risk proclivities are. But I will tell you something interesting. At the American College, we've done a lot of research on this, and there is a huge value to having some kind of guaranteed income. And I'm not saying everything has to be that way, but one thing, all of us will have that with Social Security. I hope it'll be guaranteed, but you know what I mean. So we've got that form of guaranteed income. The fact is that because we don't have the old-fashioned pension, I like to use the term DIY-DB, do it yourself, defined benefit.
I like that.
I really have to do that. It used to be my employer would do it. Now I have to sit down and say, I'm going to need income. I don't have an employer. I'm my own employer now, in retirement. So what am I going to do? Is it going to be Social Security? Yeah. Is it going to be maybe an annuity? Fine, if that's what you like. Or maybe it's going to be systematic withdrawals out of a mutual fund. But you really have to come up with some kind of do-it-yourself defined benefit. You can't just sit on that pot of money. A big reason why is because you'll underspend. Now, some people may overspend, but I run into a lot of people who are affluent, and you look, and they're going to leave huge legacies and really underspend what they wanted to do simply because they don't know how much they can take out each month.
Yeah, that's interesting. We run retirement plans, and we use Monte Carlo as only one aspect of the planning that we do. We're very in-depth planners. And it's funny because I'll take people to 100% long-term probability of success. And I'll say, they're like, oh, this is great. This works out. I'm like, no, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. You guys are not living for you. You're going to wind up leaving a lot of money behind your kids. And this number needs to be coming down to like 85%. And I want to keep it at an 85 percentile because that tells me you're enjoying life and doing the things you should be doing in your golden years, right? It's interesting. So
right.
Let's spend a minute on annuities. All right. Because, I just helped a lady solve her retirement equation. She is 70 years of age, had saved just under $1 million. And she's still working. She's single. But what triggered her retirement is Social Security contacted her and said, hey, you're turning 70. You have to take your Social Security benefits. And so she makes about $100,000 a year. And so she's got $54,000 a year in Social Security income. And so we're going through her numbers, and I just asked her, say, listen, you've got an income gap between what you make now at your job, which you're fine on, okay, and your Social Security income of $44,000 a year. So she makes $100,000. She gets $54,000 from Social Security. So she's got a $46,000 a year income gap. And I just asked her point blank. I said, if there was a way to guarantee that $46,000 to you, as long as you had breath in your body, with any remaining balance you didn't use along the way, passing to your beneficiaries upon your death, how would that make you feel? You know what she said to me? She said, I didn't know something like that existed. Yeah. And I was really surprised by that, Steve. Why do you think that is? You think that the annuities get a bad rap? You think people don't know about them? They don't understand the value of them? I mean, why don't people know more about these things?
For reasons I can't explain, and even though I've been in the industry a very long time, annuities get a bad rap. And, we could look historically at whatever it is, and there's certain advisors who are saying they hate them and all that. All I can tell you, both as an academic and as a planner, is people tend to like the peace of mind that an annuity can provide. And I can't tell you how long you're going to live. So the great thing about an annuity to me is what's sometimes called the mortality premium.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that all they have to do at the big insurance company is solve for average retirement age. You may die earlier, I may die later. They have all these hundreds of thousands of customers, so it all plans, it's even in the wash. I can't do that. You can't do that because I might live to 90, 95. So I have to plan for a longer period of time than the insurance company does. So the deal is, if I die early, darn, there's a lot of reasons I don't want to do that, but
Sure.
Maybe it wasn't a good investment. But if I live too long, and that sounds like a bad thing, but I mean, really, if you live too long, where are you going to get the money? You get a mortality premium because essentially you're getting ongoing payments from that annuity company because someone had the misfortune of running into a wall when they were in their 60s. So annuities just make a lot of sense. If I can add one other thought to it.
Yeah, please.
Some of these opportunities that people don't know that are out there. Remember when Roths, no one was going to do a Roth. Why would you pay tax now when you can put it off to the future? Well, the new thing they've had since the Secure Act is QLACs, deferred incomes. I own one. As an academic, I can look and the numbers make too much sense not to do it. When I turn 75, it's going to turn on a switch and start giving me an income. By that time, maybe I don't want to mess with thinking about money and everything else. I'll have that. And by the way, the extra bonus is because I'm approaching RMD age, I won't have to take RMDs on that. So I think annuities make a lot of sense, and they're more important than ever because people don't have pensions.
And that's exactly right. The IRS introduced the 401k was introduced to the Internal Revenue Code back in 1978. And what began to happen is companies moved away from the defined benefit plans known as pensions. And really the 401k was designed to supplement,
Right.
For in the moment tax planning, by the way, and retirement income later in life. But it became the primary vehicle that people were going to use to finance their ideal retirement lifestyle. Right. And what's really interesting to me is the onus of retiring well today is no longer on your company. They're not going to do it for you. All right. It's on your shoulders and you've got to do it. What's also interesting to me is if I ask most people, what is your greatest fear when you think about retiring today? They often tell me, Ryan, it's outliving my money.
Outliving it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know a better way that you could actually outlive your money. Outlive your money. Okay. But never, ever outlive your income.
Exactly.
Right? And it's just amazing to me the disconnect people have when it comes to this stuff and the education that we provide on annuities, because it's like this lady I just helped out, 70 years of age. I just asked her, said, look, we can guarantee this income using half of your money. That means the other half of your money can sit out there in the markets. It can grow long term to replace the money we're putting in the annuity, by the way. All right. And it can grow undisturbed because we're not taking distributions out of the money. All right. And so that was pretty awesome. But the bottom line was I just asked her, listen, do you want to worry about your paycheck in retirement fluctuating up or down based on the stock market? She said, no, I don't. Do you want it guaranteed? She says, yes, I do. And what it comes down to is this. It didn't matter that it was an annuity, Steve. It was the thing that mattered is she got guaranteed income for life. Right. And I always equate this with my wife, Callie. Okay. Love the story. Callie says, hey, honey, I bought a picture at Home Goods because that's where she goes. As a matter of fact, when I die, I'm going to have them spread my ashes in Home Goods because I know she'll come see me every day. All right. So she asked me to hang this picture. All right. So I go down to my toolbox and I've got ratchet sets. I've got crescent wrenches and the Allen wrenches and, all these different tools in there. But in that moment, I don't pick up those tools. I pick up a screw gun, a level, and a tape measure. That's it. All right. I bypass the wrenches. I bypass the crescent wrench. I bypass the socket set. And what I always say is does that make those bad tools? No, it simply means they're not the right tool for that job. Okay. So I think what happens, and I want your take on this. Do you feel like a lot of people using conventional financial wisdom are putting all their money to work in one way in their retirement plan and trying to make the best out of that one way of investing, like a 60-40 portfolio?
Well, research would suggest that's what people do. They get focused. And part of the challenge is, like we're talking about, it's complex. It's not easy to retire anymore. And so you gravitate towards the last thing you read on the internet or what your next door neighbor did. And what comes with that is the prejudices about just because it helps, it doesn't solve everything. So annuities is a good example. I would not see a situation where I tell somebody to take all of their money and put it in an annuity. Why? Because most annuities that are priced right really don't have an inflation rider on them. And so you want to have some money that you can leave as a legacy, that'll grow. So you're going to need different tools, and it's not just different tools, but different tools at different times. A 65-year-old retiree is not the same thing as an 85-year-old retiree. The 65-year-old has a lot of years ahead of them and see the grandkids and all that. The 85-year-old starting to think about legacy. And so you really have to get the right tool at the right time, as well as just a variety of tools.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's all about timing as well. Let's spend a minute and talk about this for a second. What is your take on the viability of Social Security from an academic standpoint? Do you think that we're looking at cuts to Social Security? We're going to get a 20% haircut? I mean, what's your take on it?
Social Security advice comes in trends. So a while back, it was take the money and run. Then a lot of us were writing papers saying, well, when you really do the numbers, delaying as long as possible. If you can get income, when you're 62 and wait till 70, do it. It always makes sense. And right now we're in that kind of in between again, where people go, yeah, but look at what the Social Security trustees report says. I think I would give you this answer, and this in a dollar may or may not buy a Starbucks. But if you are very close to retirement or in retirement, I wouldn't worry about it a lot, because there's so much political pressure. They're going to figure out some way to keep making those payments, because, and it's going to be about 7-8 years and it would drop by 25%. That's politically unacceptable. So if you're at or near retirement, don't sweat this. And whatever you do, don't elect it early just so you can get it while you can, because that's the numbers don't work out the way. They drop everybody's Social Security. So that doesn't make sense. However, if you're in your 40s or 50s, in particular, if you're affluent and doing okay, you use the term I use, a haircut, which obviously I don't need. But what you really have to do is you really need to say, well, let's be a little conservative, get a little cushion. Sure, maybe give it a 15 or 20%. Now, I really don't think they would drop it that much. But what they might do is make the full retirement age 70 instead of the current 67. Or maybe they're going to take a bigger percentage of FICA out of your paycheck. So yeah, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, but whatever you do, don't buy into all the stuff that's going on right now. We've had a lot of phases. This one's pretty bizarre, I fully admit, as far as, DOGE getting at the files and all that, but we've had weird things with Social Security before. I don't think it's going to go away. And I think if you're older, worry about some other things in retirement planning. Let's not get too excited about Social Security.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that, Tate, because if you look at the majority of Social Security recipients, they're voters. Okay. And you're going to go cut somebody you're going to get their vote to be in office. You're going to cut their Social Security benefits. As we say in Texas, that dog does not hunt, right? It's not going to work, right? So, yeah, and I'm with you. I don't think it's as big of a deal as people make it out to be, but I like to address that because I don't want people worried about it. I don't want people to make bad decisions. I've got a recent retiree that came to us. The guy made a terrible decision. I advise him strongly against it. He's 62. His wife is 52. And he took his Social Security benefits at 62. And I said, here's the problem. You're worried about getting all you can out of that system. I don't care about you. I care about your younger wife because she's going to outlive you. And I'd wait for you to take your Social Security benefits until you're 70. So she gets that big benefit when you pass away. And he wasn't having it, right? So it's just interesting. And I don't want people to make that same mistake, because in that situation, barring some type of accident, that wife is going to outlive that husband, and she's going to be stuck with that Social Security check at age 62 because she was a non-working spouse.
Yeah. And so it's in some ways almost a death benefit for the surviving spouse. It pretty much makes sense. The other thing I would throw in is when you're thinking about that, also think about Medicare and really balancing some of your decisions. Maybe you could come up with a bridge. We were talking about annuities. There are annuities that could give you a bridge until you turn 70. So think through that, because the deal is the medical expenses of Medicare are going to keep rising. So you need that cost of living. Remember, Social Security is your one cost of living you can get. So wait as long as you can, and that way you're going to have something growing and being able to pay those increasing medical costs.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what's your take on Medicare? I mean, is that going to be there for us, right? That's another one that you hear a lot about. I mean, I know it's going to be here. But what is your take on that?
Well, I would assume Medicare is going to be there in one form or another. I think there are obviously pressures, and so it has the same risk of running out of trust money as anything else. I think what we're going to see, and we're already kind of behind the scenes starting to see it, they'll do some nip and tucks with it. They're already talking about, with traditional original Medicare, in some cases getting prior approval. Well, I'm on Medicare right now, and I don't need prior approval from anybody. Now they're talking about doing it. They're gonna experiment with it. I think the Medicare Advantage is going to be trimmed back some way or another because there's some fraud going on there. There's problems with that. But all of that to me is fine tuning it versus taking it away. That's another one where I just don't see the political ability to take that away makes sense. The other thing you may see is continued taxes and things like that. So because I still work, but I'm on Medicare, I pay double the premium that a traditional retiree would because of IRMA. They'll probably keep doing things like that to help pay for it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The income-related monthly adjusted amount is something that we deal with a lot. We have a lot of people that retired from overseas work or middle of the year making good incomes, always helping them file that SS-44 form because work stoppage qualifies for that. Retirement is work stoppage, by the way. That's interesting stuff. Well, let's get to one of my favorite topics. And I ask everybody that comes on this show this same question, and I get different takes on it. What do you think the largest expense is going to be for someone in retirement? Is it A, taxes, or B, medical expenses?
I could name a third, but
what is a third? Curiously,
I am going to name that because living expenses, and what I mean is like housing and that kind of thing. That is a hidden one, and actually, again, we have the advantage of research. Is people think, well, I'll just retire in place. The trouble is that gets really expensive. You're going to need a new roof and all the taxes going up and all that. So to me, the two big expenses are medical and housing, which surprise people, but they think Medicaid's going to take care of it. And no, Medicaid's not going to take care of your housing. So you've got all those expenses, Medicare, or I should say medical. There's no indication that it's going to get any cheaper. So as much as I'm a tax attorney by background, but taxes really take less of a hit once you get into retirement. I mean, look at what the OBA, the new tax law did. You know, now you got this new deduction. Taxes are important.
You can have like $150,000 a year in income and be in the 12% bracket. That's
exactly
pretty darn good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not paying that much in taxes and I make some pretty good money. I guess where I'm going with that is just simply to say taxes still are important because you can increase your net amount. But that's kind of on the top. First of all, you got to make sure you've budgeted for your medical expenses and you've taken care of really thinking through where you're going to live.
So, you know, when you say where you're going to live, I know you wrote an article, it was either on Kipling or Forbes about snowbirds, right? And, you know, when you say where should people like shop around the cheapest places to live in the country? Should they relocate? Should they sell the house that they've got 4 bedrooms in upstairs they haven't been in 10 years? You know, I mean, give me some ideas around that to help people solve that issue of living cost.
Well, at least 70% of new retirees want to retire in place. That's where their church is. That's often where their kids are, you know, all those kind of things. But you do have the people that are saying, no, I had to live up north and I really want to, I moved to Florida. I'm a snowbird. I moved from Iowa to Florida. And so they really want to live out that dream. And yes, to answer your question, it is a process like anything else where you start researching it. I live in a state where I don't pay income taxes. That makes a difference. So there's this whole process you go through. The other one, though, is that's all the because I want to type of stuff. You also have to take your pulse, see how you're doing, and really say medically, how am I going to be? We got this beautiful house. It's with our neighbors, near our neighbors. But the trouble is it's got stairs and I'm having more and more trouble getting up with those steps. The fact is we are going to live a very long time. So older people are going to have to build in their physiological challenges and start looking at, do I want to buy a ranch? Do I want to move to CCRC? So it's a process of thinking about what do you want to do and where do you want to do it, but also what's going to fit medically as far as accommodating age, because people are going to live longer.
Yeah. The generation we're speaking to right now will live longer than any generation in history. And that longevity keeps pushed out further and further. In fact, the Aging Institute, Aging, I guess, chapter of the MIT Institute is studying aging. And they're saying that there could be a time when the youngest part of the family is 100. And the mom and dad are 120, like grandma and grandpa are like 140. I mean, it's getting crazy. But, all the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors and the healthcare companies, they're not working to kill us faster. They're trying to keep us alive longer. Right? It's really interesting what's happening with aging.
And we have to keep in mind that, how do you want to put it? Just because you live longer doesn't, and I don't want to depress anybody, but doesn't mean it's going to be quality, or at least quality as it was before. So my doctor can make me live longer, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to have diabetes or degenerative disc disease or something like that, which is not a problem. You just have to build that into your planning.
Right. My grandfather, Steve, is in a home in Asheville, North Carolina. We flew to see him recently. He's 95. And I asked him, I said, Pop, who's the oldest person in this home? He said, she's 107. And I'm like, well, what is she like? Is she coherent? He said, Bud, she gets around like better than anybody else in this home. She has conversations. Her faculties are there. So, hopefully if you lived at 107, that's you, right? But the quality of life, as you said, may not be there. Which, bring us to another topic. Let's say the quality of life isn't there. What do we do? Who's going to take care of us? Right. I mean, it's such an important part because, we buy a long-term care insurance, or we try to use an annuity with a long-term care rider to hedge out the cost of long-term care, or use a life insurance policy with a long-term care benefit. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat, or we can even self-insure. But isn't part of it making sure you have someone kind of designated to help take care of you in the event that time comes?
I think that's a bigger issue than people realize, simply because of the demographics. And I mean, we can argue about immigration and all that, but the simple fact is, in the United States, we are not going to have enough caregivers. The fastest growing age demographic is 85 and above. So I'm a baby boomer. We're going to need help. So yes, you have to factor that in. And maybe some of that is really working with the family, because the simple deal is, it used to be we all moved away or the kids moved away. Now we really have to factor in that we're going to need help. And yes, you can finance some of that through long-term care and all those kind of things, but you also have to say, where am I going to be where I can find that help? I have some friends who are in their late 70s and very wealthy, but they're living in a part of Colorado that if something goes wrong, it ain't going to work for them. They simply are going to have to move to somewhere where they can get adequate care.
Yeah, it's interesting, the relocation aspects of just that part alone, or having a child. My brother's in the headhunting business, and he tries to relocate executives all the time. And it's interesting the number of executives that won't relocate because they're dealing with elder care issues. And it's happening more and more and more. It's a very, very fascinating thing. And I think it's going to become a larger and larger problem. And one of the things that we always encourage people to do is never, ever leave an unplanned estate. That's a terrible thing to do to your family, by the way. But in that estate plan should be who's going to take care of you in the event you need care or become incapacitated. And it may be a family member, it may be a friend, it may be somebody goes to church or whatever it is. But you need to start thinking about that part too. It's one of the most important parts.
In fact, if I can say it, I hadn't identified my age. I'm 73, and
okay.
I see things. I see things different than some other people. A lot of my friends are that. I will tell you, more and more as you get to people that can fund their own retirement, and so they're not just living paycheck to paycheck, that legacy planning, estate planning really becomes part of retirement planning. I've been banging this one around for a long time. A lot of us are saying, no, an important part of my retirement is to be able to leave X amount to my church or to my kids or whatever. And you really have to factor that in. So when you say, how much do you need for monthly income? With a lot of people, you should also say, assuming how much legacy that you want to leave to your kids or your church or charity.
Yeah, it should be a factor for sure. And we spend a lot of time handling estate planning for our client base. In fact, it's interesting. We do classes all over town And the biggest audience we get at our classes are our estate planning classes. And it's it's something that impacts everyone, regardless of your estate size or your net worth or where you got your money. Everyone's thinking about it. And man, I have seen over the years, people leaving unplanned estates, and I've seen the strongest of family units just torn apart because of grandma's dishes, which seems like a stupid thing to you or I. It wasn't our grandma, it wasn't the dishes, but that kind of stuff should not destroy a good family unit.
Yeah, I've worked in state administration, and it can get very ugly. And a lot of that you can literally make go away with correct planning. People are going to be people, but if you've really got your power of attorney and you've got your will and you've set up a living trust, a lot of that gets negated because you've set it up, you've planned for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Steve, let me spend some time. I want folks to know more about you. All right. So on the academic side, you're an attorney, clearly a highly educated man, but you spend a lot of time with the American College. And folks at home, you don't know this, but the American College is where you go to get a CLU, Chartered Life Underwriter, CFP, RICP, I think comes from American College as well.
That's mine.
Yeah. It is yours? Okay. I was wondering about that, by the way. Yeah. So you've taught there and you've taught advisors over the years, and you're kind of at the American College. Is that accurate?
Actually, I'll pass along a personal story because it gives you an idea of why I mentioned there's different phases of retirement. I was in my mid-50s with a successful career in financial services, big company. Said, I think I really would love to, as a passion, is to go teach this stuff. And I got to tell you, so I was starting to think about it in my mid-50s, and my wife and I went to one of those retirement planning sessions that employers sometimes do. They don't give you the nice steak that sometimes the other planners do. And my wife was a retired accountant, and they talked about Social Security, they talked about Medicare, they talked about what do you do with your 401k. And as we walked out, and please don't take this the wrong way, but she said to me kind of sheepishly, "How do dumb people retire?" And that really got to me. I'm serious. It really got to me, as it told me two things. One, it's super important because all those decisions, and I knew that, I was educated in it, I know are important. And second, it is incredibly complex. And so that's why when I left the financial industry, I went to the American College and helped I was director of the Retirement Income Center, because I really wanted to help people with making the retirement decision.
And I just think that's so important, folks, because we've got the man that's specialized in teaching over the years how to generate retirement income. And you didn't, I make money if you buy an annuity from my company. I'll tell you right now, I do. But you got a gentleman here who doesn't, telling you that if you want guaranteed income for life and retirement, it's a good way to go, or at least for some of your money to be guaranteed. And I love hearing that because there's so many naysayers out there on that stuff, Steve. It's just so important. Let me ask you this, man. As far as retirement income goes, let's say that I'm not somebody, I'm just, I'm a Ramsey follower, I'm a Fisher follower. How do they invest their money, to generate a 4% distribution using the 4% rule or 5% distribution? What are some ideas you have for those kind of folks out there who are just, anti-guaranteed income? Because they need some help too.
Yeah, that's fine, because you have to meet the person where they are.
That's right.
And I will tell you, to me, one of the more exciting things is that software and AI really are starting to help make this work, meaning that, like you referenced Monte Carlo, and we all know that Monte Carlo is a great way for telling us how are we doing, but it comes off crazy because, like you said, if you're at 100%, that's a bad thing. You want to be closer to 85. It's kind of like, well, I've always been a good student. I don't want to be 100%. There really is good software out there, but I think you usually need somebody a professional that can help on this, that really sorts through and it really says, okay, let's stress test. How are we doing? Given the current economy, do we change the portfolio? Because what you're really going after, and you mentioned the 4% rule, which the 4% is neither a rule nor makes sense, but you're trying to have some bogey, and maybe it's, 3 to 5% or whatever it is. But let's keep trimming this and adjusting it because it's going to vary as life circumstances vary. The good positive message, I think, is for those who really feel that they want to take systematic withdrawals from a growing portfolio that maybe is, 50-50 or 60-40 or whatever. now there are tools that can help if they're willing to take the time to look each year and say, how am I doing? What changes do I have to make? Where it goes bad is where you just say, okay, I'm going to take 4% out of my mutual fund account and I'm good. You're not good. You really have to keep looking at it. Otherwise, if you want to be just done with it, do an annuity. It makes so much more sense.
Yeah, and I think people miss that. And I always ask this question, it's 4% of what? Right? I've got $1 million today. I've got my Social Security of $40,000. I'm taking 4% out of my portfolio. It's $40,000. My retirement income is $80,000. I'm fine. Okay, cool. Well, what if that portfolio drops 20% and it's now worth $800,000 and you're clipping that 4% coupon off that portfolio? Now your income's going down to $32,000. And,
Right.
I don't know anybody who goes to work and is okay with a pay cut while they're working. Right? You don't go to work and all of a sudden your paycheck is, $1,000 less this month than it was last month. You're going to be like, no, that's not going to work. Why should you subject yourself to the same in retirement? It's really interesting to me. And it's just a fascinating thing. I think a lot of it has to do with behavioral economics, stereotypes of investment products, and the market control is a very big one.
Want to give up control.
Speak on that a little bit as far as control goes. What are your thoughts on that?
That is I will concede that. You can tell I like annuities and I have them personally, but it hurt to write that $100,000 check for my QLAC because I just gave up control over $100,000 to XYZ insurance company. So I think that is a challenge. That's one of the reasons I said I probably wouldn't do 100% annuities.
No, I wouldn't either.
People still need to have some control over it. Maybe they're to help their kids, grandkids with their tuition. But that doesn't mean you need to have 100% control. Do you really want to clip coupons when you're in your 60s, or do you want to go golfing instead?
I'm going golfing. I'm going golfing. Well, Steve, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. I am honored that you showed up. I've followed your work for many, many years. And the American College is a great facility. Your teachings there are phenomenal. Your articles are phenomenal. And I just really appreciate you coming on here and sharing this information. I'd love to have you back sometime in the future as well.
Well, I appreciate it. Keep getting the good word out there. I like it.
We'll do it, bud. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay, thanks.
Subscribe to Redefine Retirement on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.